1959, a watershed and tumultuous year, both for America and the world. Hawaii and Alaska became states. The Barbie doll made its debut. Buddy Holly, Richie Valens, and the Big Bopper were killed in a plane crash. Fidel Castro became the premier for Cuba, and NASA chose its first 7 astronauts. That year also proved remarkable for the fledgling community of St. Clair Shores. That's when a mother of 4, Jackie Demling, along with 2 other men, Don Monart and Kenny Revoir, decided to start the St. Clair Shores Community Players. The 3 were students in an adult education theater class in the St. Clair Shores School District, and Don had talked to Jackie about her joining up with a theater group in Warren.
So basically it was just a way to get out once a week, and I met Ken and Don in the class. And I think Don was a member of the Warren Theater Group. And he had told Ken and I that if we, were interested in theater, we should come out to Warren. And we said, wait a minute, why can't we do something in St. Clair Shores?
Yeah.
So they knew some people, and I knew a couple people, and got talking about it, and they said, yeah, we could do that. So there we were. Just to have a group that could put on plays and hopefully have someone come see them. No great ambitions for any lasting dynasty or anything like that.
Jackie, Don, and Kenny decided to start the effort by notifying the local newspapers like the St. Clair Shores Herald and the Macomb Daily to get people to join up as charter members. They charged each person the then mighty sum of $1 for membership dues so they could start their adventures on the stage. But they could only go so far with $54 and the desires for a large production. With that in mind, the St. Clair Shores Players decided upon the play The Night of January 16th, written by Ayn Rand. The play, much like Rand's other works like Fountainhead, was progressive and different, in that the audience members actually decided the fate of the defendant on trial. While the play demanded a large cast, however, the choice was one of the St. Clair Shores Players' most brilliant moves, according to Les Wilson, who is the longest continuous member of the group.
And that was a courtroom scene. And of course, not having a stage, they did what I think made a brilliant move. They went to the City Council of St. Clair Shores and asked the council members if they might use their council chambers, which happened to be also the city courtroom.
Yeah.
And of course, there was a little bit of worry on the part of the councilman that if they gave a group like ours the use of the council chambers, they might be setting a precedent.
A bad precedent.
But some of the members' wives were members of the community theater, so they couldn't very well turn us down.
Turn them down, yeah.
And
plus they asked the mayor, didn't they?
pardon?
Didn't they ask the mayor to become the...
Well, yes. Another great move on their part was asking the mayor to take the part of the judge. And the mayor at the time was Tom Welch, and he was a little controversial. But the fact that we picked him, we got a lot of extra publicity out of it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a very difficult thing for Tom to do because they typed the whole script on legal-sized paper and he had it in front of him. He didn't have to memorize his lines. He was just reading the script as it went along, and it looked to the audience like he was thumbing through legal papers. When it was his turn to give a line, he could almost read it. But he was a very impressive character, and he did a great job on that part.
From there, the St. Clair Shores Players started delving into even more creative territory with plays such as Tea House of the August Moon, which Jackie herself directed.
It was written in Japanese, so they just, you had to remember them. It was probably, if there had been any Japanese people in the audience listening, it would probably been incomprehensible to them, but they tried. And, well, it was, we thought, significant and quite a challenge, big challenge. I directed that.
Did you?
It was a huge challenge. Yes. I can remember watching Don Monard and Ken Revore, who were the two wrestlers, wrestling on my living room floor. And I was trying to block them, so it was pretty funny.
The musical, The Pajama Game, performed in November of 1963, proved to be another memorable production for the Players. Pre-publicity surrounding the production showed a unique use of pajamas and pickets. But the second night of production, on November 22, 1963, also came during one of America's darkest moments, the assassination of President John F. Kennedy.
To begin with, and but unfortunately, on the second night of the performance was the day that President Kennedy was assassinated. We went to, we showed up at the school that night with the idea of discussing to see whether we should continue performing. Even the professional theaters closed down that particular night, but some of the people felt like the show must go on. And but in the final analysis, we decided it'd be better to close, and only a few people showed up anyway, and they were they could understand why we shut it down for that night. But we opened up the next weekend, and
To a resounding success.
Very successful show.
Still, the Players scored more triumphs during the 1960s in the post-Cold War era society, with productions of Born Yesterday, Cuckoos on the Hearth, and Goodbye Charlie, which the Players have performed twice, and both times with memorable backstories that made the group wonder if the production is cursed.
The first time we did it, when we were about 2 weeks before the opening night, we found out that the show was on the Catholic Legion of Decency list, which meant it was
A no-no.
It was a no-no as far as Catholics were concerned. And the lead at the time was our president, and she was one of our best actresses, but she had just converted to becoming Catholic just a short time before. And when she talked to her priest, he said, no way can she continue with that part. Well, it created quite a problem because it was only less than 2 weeks to go before opening night. Other members of the cast that were Catholic asked their particular priest the same question: did he think we could continue? And they all had various answers to that question. Some of them thought it wasn't all that bad a thing, and others said, no way, you can't do it.
Yeah.
Well, our director happened to know a person from the Warren Theater group. Eileen McCabe was her name at the time. She was like a professional singer and was part of that community theater. Asked her if she would take the part, and she was more than happy to do so. And within less than 2 weeks, she learned that whole part. And honestly, I think she did a better job than the original gal did.
And the second time, what happened there?
Well, the second time, as I recall,
It was only a couple of years ago, right?
yeah, it was lately, just a couple of years ago that we did it. I don't remember the details about now about Erica Mann was going to direct it, and
She had an appendicitis attack.
yeah, she had an appendicitis attack,
Yeah.
and she not only was she planning, as I understand it, planning to direct, but she was going to take the lead. But
Oh, goodness.
of course, she had to drop out. And we had to find another director to do that. I think Pat.
Plus another lead.
Pardon?
Plus another lead, right?
Yeah. Yes, of course, another lead. And we fortunately, we were able to do that, and the show came off. But we just, it's one of those shows that seems to be a bad luck show. You know, everything goes wrong with it. We wonder if we should ever do it again.
But with the end of the 1960s, financial problems loomed on the horizon for the St. Clair Shores Players, and its existence looked dismal. But the St. Clair Shores Players prevailed and have performed every season without fail, even as they moved to different locations over the years. The group started out performing at Chippewa Junior High School, which has since been torn down, and then moved to South Lake Auditorium after 13 years. In 1979, the Players moved to the Italian Cultural Center, and in 2004, following the sale of the Italian Cultural Center, the Players now perform at the Luther Center of the First English Evangelical Lutheran Church in Grosse Pointe Woods. Some of the productions over the years include Play It Again, Sam, Look Homeward, Angel, Unhealthy to be Unpleasant, Steel Magnolias, Up the Down Staircase, Dearly Departed, You Can't Take It With You, Perfect Timing, and Caught in the Villain's Web. Now, in its 47th season, the group hopes to have a permanent home established as they bring another year of live theater to St. Clair Shores and its surrounding communities.